started. Okay, so we're on section 2-2. Problem number 17. Nothing new on this one. Just want to make sure you haven't forgotten how to do it. And then we're going to start something new here as soon as we get this problem out of the way. So number 17, we have half x plus 1 squared. Y equals 1/2 x plus 1 squared. Okay, plus 3. Plus 3. Okay, they want the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and they want us to graph this thing. Okay? Well, actually, it doesn't say what is the vertex and what is the axis of symmetry. We're going to name them, though, okay? Now, I want to point out here, somebody in the class is going to help everybody out here. Just don't just listen to what they say, but let's, for example, right here, the vertex. Somebody tell me what the vertex, everybody should be able to tell me the vertex. What is it right here? What? What's that? -1, +3, okay? It took us about 5 seconds, okay? It's very, very easy to find the vertex. Keep that in mind for the next problem, okay? And the axis of symmetry is what? X equals -1, okay? So, we're going to plot some points, and we have the point -1, 3. And again, if we're at -1, think about it on a number line, -1. If you're 1 right and 1 left, you're going to be at 0 and -2. And again, if you're at -1, if you go 2 right and 2 left, you're at -3 and +1. I don't know what we're going to get when I plug in 0 and -2, but I'm going to get the same answer. Same thing when I plug in +1 and -3. 1 right, 1 left, 2 right, 2 left. I'm going to plug in 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 squared is still 1. Times 1/2 is 1/2 plus 3. So 3.5 or 3.5, doesn't matter. So both 0 and -2 are going to have y values of 3.5. Then I'm going to plug in either -3 or 1. It doesn't matter. I'm going to plug in 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Half of 4 is 2. Plus 3 is 5. They're both 5. 1 and -3 both have y values of 5. So, nope. I mean, I would always go, I mean, I put 0, -2. If you put -2, 0, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but like when you do 0, when you substitute it, when you put it in the equation, does it matter what order you go in?
What order we do the operations in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Do
definitely.
you have to do like the
Parentheses, then exponents. Then you always multiply and divide before you add and subtract. Okay, so let's graph this thing. So -1, 3 is back 1 and up 1, 2, 3. 0, 3.5. So 0 and up 3.5. -2, 3.5. -2, 3.5. 1, 3, 4, 5, and -3. 1.5, and it looks sort of like that. Okay, just a quick rough graph. Nothing new there. Any question on number 17? Okay, there is no number 19. The next question in your assignment is question number 21. For question number 21, we have, okay, y equals x squared, okay. Now, seriously, your classmates are all, everybody here is going to help each other out on this question. Listen very carefully to the responses. What's a vertex? What's the problem? How come nobody's answered it yet? You're not in trouble.
Right?
Why were you guys so quickly able to answer the vertex here, but nobody's answered? So what's a vertex? So what's a vertex? Somebody say it. It's really okay. I'll pick on you. What's a vertex? It's really okay. Say it. Say it. It's okay. Say it. It's okay. Say what? Say what are you saying right now?
I don't know.
Who said that? Very good. I don't know. I don't either.
Oh, go.
My point was this. I said, what's a vertex? Within about 3 or 4 seconds, 3 or 4 of your answers. Oh, yeah, vertex is this. I said, what's a vertex? And what did everybody say? Crickets. Okay, nobody knew. Nobody knew what a vertex was because it's not in vertex form. Okay? This is something called vertex form. It's called vertex form because you should be able to look at it and say, oh, the vertex is this. This is not vertex form. Okay, so what's the vertex? I don't know yet. Okay?
Oh, we don't know yet. So we have
Not yet. We got to find the vertex. And it's not going to be that bad. I mean, here's the deal, though. It's a little harder to find the vertex here because what work do you need to do to find the vertex here? Basically nothing. You have to remember the words opposite, same. Okay? You got to do a little bit of work here, okay? Now, I heard somebody say, I think it was Iobi said, yeah, that one doesn't have the parentheses. You're right. What else is different about this one compared? And I'm not saying you're wrong when you say there's no parentheses. I totally agree, okay? There's something else, though, that this thing is different than that. I like what you both of you said. There's more than one x. Here, there's only one x. Here we got two x's. That makes it a little bit tougher, okay? So, what I want you to understand before we go any further is this. If I give you something such as this, 3x squared plus 2x plus 5. Don't write this down, okay? That's in the correct form. We've never talked about this, but hopefully in Algebra 1 you remember this or you learned it, okay? If I'm writing this, that's in the correct form. If I gave you 8x plus 1 plus 9x squared, that's not in the right order, okay? What should have been first, 8x, 1, or 9x squared? 9x squared, then what? Then what? What determines the order?
Isn't it called convex?
No, I'm making it way too hard. How'd you guys know 9x squared went first?
Because it's big.
What's bigger?
Because
Ooh, not because of the 9. Careful. Ooh, the exponents go from big to little. X to the second, x to the first. No, x is supposed to be in the right order, okay? So, now how about this one? Is that quadratic in the right order? Careful. Is that quadratic in the right order? What'd you say? That's in the right order. But what's the problem? I said be careful. It says, is that quadratic? What does quadratic mean? This is to the third. That's a cubic. It's something called a cubic. Okay, it's in the right order. It's not a quadratic. Okay. So what I want to make sure you understand is when a quadratic's in the right order, that's called quadratic form. That's in quadratic form. So quadratic form is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Something x squared plus something x plus something. Okay. So in this case, a would be 9, b would be 8, and c would be 1. Okay? Just ABC. Simple as 1, 2, 3. Okay? So in this case, now be careful. A is the number in front of the x squared. B is the number in front of the x, and c is the number all by itself. So in this problem right here, is this in the right order?
Yep.
Sure. What would A, B, and C be? A would be, and be careful, students say, oh, it's x squared. No, it's not. It's the number in front of the x squared. You don't see it, but it's there. A 1. What's B? 2, and C is 1. 1, 2, 1. Jot that down, okay? In all honesty, you really don't need to know C right yet, okay? You really don't need to know C. So once you jot that down, let's backtrack over here for a second. Be real clear here, okay? How did listen carefully, it'll help you out here in about 2 minutes. How did we get these y values? Where do these y values come from? We plugged in the x values, okay? Now, we didn't plug in -1 to get 3. We knew that was 3. We could have, but we didn't need to, okay? To find the y values, you plug in the x values. Keep that in mind. Okay, so a formula you need to memorize is this. -b over 2a. Jot that down. We're going to use this on almost every problem the rest of the day. Probably every problem the rest of the day, and tomorrow for that matter, okay? -b over 2a. So, again, the reason why we don't really need to know c right now, our formula has no c, okay? So, what's -b? Well, b is 2, -b is -2. Over 2 times a is 1, which is -2 over 2 times 1 is 2, which is -1. Now, what the heck is -1? I haven't told you yet. Okay, I'm just curious. Does anybody have a guess what -1 is? Any guesses? The x what? The x value of the vertex. Yeah, that's the x value of the vertex. Now, I said this 2 minutes ago. I said, pay attention. It'll help you on the next question. Well, how am I going to find the y value? What'd you say? Plug what in? Plug it, what? So what value? In for which x? All of them, both of them, okay? And when you plug them in, I would put them in parentheses, okay? So -1 squared in parentheses plus 2 times -1 plus 1, okay? We plug in -1 for all the x's, okay? So -1 squared is -1 times -1, which is +1. 2 times -1 is -2 plus 1. 1, now, the question was asked a few minutes ago. Does it matter what order we do things in? Yes, it does. What do we do first? Do we add or subtract? We do order of operations. Do we add first or subtract first? Be careful.
Add and subtract.
It does matter. What should we do first?
Whatever comes.
Oh, take.
What'd you say?
Take
Whatever
away.
comes.
Whatever comes first, okay? In this case, we're going to subtract first, because now if it said this, if it said 1 plus 2 minus 1, what would we do first here? We'd add. You don't add and then subtract. A lot of students think you add and then subtract. You add and subtract on the same step, whatever you see first, left to right. Same with multiply, divide. You don't multiply then divide. You do it on the same step, whatever you see first, left to right. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1, plus 1 is 0. What's 0? The y value. So do we know the vertex now?
Negative.
Vertex is negative 1, 0. Are they asking for the axis of symmetry? Yes, they are. What's the axis of symmetry? X equals negative 1. Okay, these are kind of longer questions. Now we got to graph this thing still. So we have negative 1, 0. Now nothing's changed. Once we found the vertex, it's the same old stuff now. Okay? So what would you guys like to plug? Let's plug in the same values here. We had negative 1, let's plug in 0, negative 2. That's 1 right, 1 left. And 0, negative 2, negative 3, and positive 1. So again, I don't know what 0 and negative 2's y values are, but they're going to be the same as our negative 3 and positive 1's y values are going to be the same. So I'm going to plug in either 0 or negative 2. I'm going to plug in 0. I'm not going to show my steps on this. Watch carefully. It's going to take about 3 seconds. If I plug in 0, any term that's got an x is going to turn into what? 0, 0, 1. Negative 2 is also 1. If you don't believe me, plug in negative 2. You're going to get 1 for an answer, unless you make a mistake. I can plug in negative 3 or 1. It doesn't matter. I'm going to plug in 1. Now, just don't do this. Don't plug in 1 for one of the x values and negative 3 for the other x value. No, pick one or the other and stick with it. Let's plug in 1. 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 2 times 1 plus 1. 1 squared is 1. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1. 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4. So both 1 and negative 3 have y values of 4. I'm going to graph them. I go as high as 4. And as far left as negative 3. So negative 1, 0 is back 1. Stay right there. 0, 1 is straight up 1. Negative 2, 1 is back 2 up 1. Negative 3 up 4. Positive 1 up 4. Yes, ma'am. B is the number in front of the x. A, B, and C are just the numbers in front. A is in front of the x squared, 1. B is the number in front of the x, 2. C is the number all by itself. They're just numbers. Don't put 2x. I'm glad you brought that up, okay? I'm not making fun here, okay? Let's make it very, very simple. When we use this formula, you know what A, don't think hard on this at all, This is a very basic question, okay? You know what A, B, and C are? They're always whats? It's not 2x, it's just 2. A, B, and C are simply whats? Numbers, just numbers, that's it. They're numbers, don't put x's in there, okay? So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna say that several times. And on test day, every year I do this, I'll have people put down, well, A is like X and B, and it's like, if you're putting X's in for A, B, and C, and because we're gonna do a bunch of these questions, and if somebody, after all the questions we do, they're still putting in X's for, this is the first question, so that's okay that you're asking it. But, you know, if we've done 20 questions like this or whatever, if you're still plugging in X's for A, B, and C, yikes. I know that's not gonna be a pretty test. Okay, let's try another one. Good news is, most of the questions we have left are kind of like this. Let's look at 23. This one will be easier because it's the second time we've done it, okay? If you're a little bit shaky right now, it's really okay. My goal is that by the end of the hour, you'll have at least a pretty decent understanding of how to do these. Plus 2. Is this an easier one like last week or a tougher one like today's?
Easy.
What's the vertex?
Just like it.
You still haven't answered me. What's the vertex?
We don't know yet.
You don't know yet. Easier or tougher?
Tougher.
What's the vertex again?
We don't know.
So is this easier or tougher?
Tougher than last
It's tougher, okay? Because you can tell me the vertex almost immediately. I don't know the vertex yet. I don't know it. Okay, so this is a little bit tougher. I mean, it's no different than the question we just did. It's literally the same type question. But I mean, it's not as quick as the ones we did last Thursday. Okay. So I would encourage you to write negative b over 2a every time on every problem until a certain time. When do you think you should probably stop writing negative b over 2a?
Never.
When you not know how to do it, when it's, you gotta memorize this thing, okay?
When it's in your brain.
When it's in your brain, you're not gonna forget it. Negative b over 2a. So a is what? Negative 4. B is, and what's C?
2, but it don't.
I like that even better. It's 2, but you know what my response to C is? Who cares? We don't need C right now, okay? So negative b, so negative 8 over 2 times a is negative 4. So negative 8 over 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Negative 8 over negative 8 is positive 1. And again, what's positive 1? The x value of the vertex. You guys know what the axis of symmetry is? Oh, we forgot it from last Thursday. What is it? Don't say 1.
Negative 1.
X is 1. The axis of symmetry, what I just put. What I just circled, that's the axis of symmetry. That's literally the axis of symmetry. Now, we don't have the entire vertex yet. Why? I kind of just told you. Why don't we know the axis of symmetry, or the vertex yet?
You don't have Y.
We don't have y. I just said why. Why? Why? Whatever. Okay, so how do we find y?
You plug in the X.
Substitute in what?
1.
For what? For all the x's. And when you substitute it in, put it in parentheses. So negative 4 times 1 squared plus 8 times 1 plus 2. We do powers before we do timesing. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times 1 squared is 1. I'm showing all my steps here. You don't necessarily have to. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. 8 times 1 is 8. Okay. Then we add up left to right. Negative 4 plus 8 is 4. Plus 2 is 6. What's 6? The y value of the vertex. So the vertex is 1, 6. The axis of symmetry is x equals 1. Okay.
Wait, okay, for when you're solving the equation, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4
Okay.
squared equals 6.
Oh, slow down. Time out. You're right. But you do powers before you do multiplying. Okay. You're right if that's the order you do them in. But make sure you do the powers first. Easy way to remember is this. You guys know, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's not familiar. You know what I'm talking about? Or PEMDAS or whatever.
Yep.
Okay. Here's another way you can think of it. You do order of operations from hard to easy. Okay. What's the easiest? What's the first thing you guys learned how to do in math way back in first grade, if not before first grade? Add and subtract. Then what did you learn after that? Multiply and divide. Okay. And then you had exponents. Okay. Parentheses are in there also. So parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. You go from hard to easy. Okay. All right. So let's make a little T-chart. We have 1, 6. We're at 1, so let's plug in 0 and 2. That's 1 right and 1 left from 1. And then if we want to go with 3 and negative 1, that's 2 right and 2 left from 1. Okay. Last time I'm going to ask this one, how do I find the y values again? Plug in all 4 of these x's? I'm going to plug in 2 of them. I could plug in 0 or 2. Which one do you want to plug in?
0.
Almost always pick 0. 0 is easy. What's all this going to turn into? 0, 0, 2. 2 is also going to be 2. I could plug in 3 or negative 1. I'm going to plug in negative 1. So negative 4. How do I know which one to plug in?
It don't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay? So negative 4 times negative 1 squared plus 8 times negative 1 plus 2. Okay, we do negative 1 squared, negative 1 times negative 1, that's a positive 1. So negative 4 times 1 plus 8 times negative 1 plus 2. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. 8 times negative 1 is negative 8 plus 2. So we have negative 4 minus 8 more is negative 12. Negative 12 plus 2 is, negative 12 plus 2 is negative 10. I'm not going to plot those last ones. It's not hard to plot negative 10. I just don't feel like going off the board. If we have the other three, it would be enough. So 1, 6 over 1 of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 0, 2, and 2, 2. And that looks weird. That looks upside down and skinny. Does it make sense that it's upside down and skinny?
Yeah.
Why?
Because of negative.
And what's that 4 do? Stretches it out, which makes it skinnier. Should be upside down and skinny. Oh. Okay. Two more. Number 25. I'll be honest, I get frustrated with a question like this one. Because this one, students make it harder than it is, okay? Negative x squared minus 1. This one right here, is that in vertex form? Now initially Obi said, oh, those ones aren't in vertex form, ain't no parentheses. There's no parentheses there. Is it in vertex form? What do you guys think? Do you think you could look at it and say, oh, the vertex is this, this? If you could tell the vertex almost immediately, it's probably in vertex form.
No, because he gives us the line. Actually, yeah, because x is 1. So it's 1, negative 1.
No, hang on, not 1, negative 1. Think
Or
about
negative
it.
1, negative.
Go back a month ago. When we first started, or more than a month ago, okay? Vertex was always 0, 0. What does this minus 1 do? Moves it down 1. And what's this negative do? Flips it. So instead of 0, 0, it moves it down 1. So 0, negative 1. That is in vertex form. The tip-off that it's in vertex form, he initially said, oh, ain't no parentheses. But Hoppe said, no. What makes it be out of vertex form? Not because of the parentheses. He said because there's 2 x's. How many x's you got there? 1. How about this? Is this parabola, is this quadratic in vertex form? It's not a quadratic. It's got to be raised to the power of 2. Okay? You know you should be able to tell me the vertex. Now be careful. If I give you this, you should say the vertex is negative 3, negative 8. Opposite same. Whatever you add or subtract on to x, and the number off by itself. What are we adding or subtracting to x? Nothing. This minus 1 is off by itself. The vertex is 0, negative 1. That's vertex form. We simply moved it down 1 spot. Now, one more thing. The axis of symmetry. Some students will say, well, there isn't one because it's 0. Sure it is. When you say axis of symmetry, you're supposed to say what 2 words first? X equals, and what does x equal? 0. 0 is a number.
Why the... No.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay. 0 is a number. If you don't believe me, when I'm done here in a few minutes, right now, what is your grade for section 2-2?
0.
It is?
Actually, there is no grade.
Right. Would you guys like me in a few minutes here to go put zeros in for everybody?
No.
Why? It would change your grade, hopefully a lot, okay? Yeah, hopefully zero. Right now it's nothing at all. If I put a 0 in, your grade drops, hopefully. Seriously, because if your grade doesn't drop, then your grade stunk before, okay? So let's graph this thing. Down 1, and it opens upside down. I'll let you do it the short way. That's a problem from last chapter, actually, okay? I wanted a pretty graph, we actually should have plugged in values, but.
Wait, so do we not have to do the teacher or anything?
Here's what I want. On a test, I'm going to make you do it with a teacher, okay? But something like that, this is a problem from last, because since there was only one x, this is actually a problem from the last chapter. I'm probably not going to, I might give you one question like this on your next test. Okay, so are you going to have to do T-charts yet? Since this is such a quick one that you shouldn't really have to. All right, well, one more question, I think. Yep, 27, yep, that'll be it for today. Okay, so we have negative 1.5x squared. Plus 3x plus 2. An easy one like the one we just did, or a little bit tougher? Why? 2 x's. There's 2 x's there. What's a vertex? We don't know yet. So we write down negative b over 2a. A and b are negative 1.5. What's b? b 3x? Just 3. Not 3x, just 3. Okay? So, negative b, so negative 3 over 2 times a is negative 1.5, which is negative 3 over 2 times negative 1.5 is negative 3. Negative 3 over negative 3 is positive 1.
Does it matter which one you put parentheses with the 2?
Like, did you put parentheses on the 2?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but I think it's a really good habit that whenever you plug in values for x, plug that number in parentheses. Okay, so we got to find out what our y value is. So we plug in 1 for each x. So negative 1.5 times 1 squared plus 3 times 1 plus 2. I'm going to skip a step on this one. 1 squared, I mean, you should be able to do it in your head. It's 1. 1 times negative 1.5 is negative 1.5. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2. Negative 1.5 plus 3 is positive 1.5. 1.5 plus 2 is 3.5. So our vertex is 1, 3.5. The axis of symmetry is x equals 1. I want a T-chart on this one or not? What'd you say? Yeah, this is a tougher one. I want a T-chart this time. This is not one from the last chapter. Okay, so we have 1, 3.5. I'm going to plug in 0 and 2. That's 1 right and 1 left from 1. I'm plugging negative 1 and 3. That's 2 right and 2 left from 1. I'm going to plug in 0. If I plug in 0, that's 0, that's 0, left with 2. So 0, 2, and 2, 2. I'm going to plug in 3. So negative 1.5 times 3 squared plus 3 times 3 plus 2. I plug in 3 for this x, 3 for that x. 3 squared is 9, so negative 1.5 times 9. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 2. Negative 1.5 times 9 is negative 13.5. You can use calculators. I don't expect you to know that one on the top of your head. Negative 13.5 plus 9 is negative 4.5. Negative 4.5 and 2 is negative 2.5. So these are both negative 2.5. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. When I'm looking at these, there's only one graph on here that has a vertex of 1, 3.5. So I'll be very clear on how I say this. So let's say you're working on your own. You find your vertex is 1, 3.5. You look on the computer. You see there's only one answer that has a graph that has 1, 3.5. Can you click on it and get the right answer?
Yes.
Is that what's going to be on your next test? You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say graph this and plot 5 points. Okay? So I mean, there's nothing stopping you from just getting these real quick, but you got on test day, you got to know how to do it. Okay? So it is going to look like this. So 1 up 3.5. You plot them, it's going to look like that. That's just a very quick rough graph. I'm doing what you shouldn't do because I'm lazy. Okay? Any questions on these? Okay, so what we're probably going to do is this. Let's see, we got to start on. Spend at least a couple more days on this section, I think. Okay.